In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an all-new product from SkyStars, which is called the SkyStars Karmam. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And what this is, it's an alternative to the Crazybee boards. If you don't really like those, this is another alternative right now from SkyStars. Now, this is rocking 15 amp ESCs built-in BB2 chips, so D-Shot600 maximum. And you can possibly do RPM filtering on this. Not sure, we'll test that in a later video. And it has an F4 microcontroller unit, MPU 6000 gyro, and as well as the OSD. We're also going to take a look at some of the components on board, and I'll be showing you how to connect this up correctly if you did not know how. However, before we get into the connection guide, let's see what they provide us in the packaging. So they give us a capacitor here, possibly a low ESR capacitor. Some of these connectors here for the motors, which can be, you can either direct solder to these or install these connectors if you wanted to, which is really nice. Some dampeners, also some wire, and an Xt60, which is really great here. Now, some things to take note of here. This board takes a maximum of a 4S LiPo, so it'll take anywhere between 2S and 4S. And if you were planning on using this on a 1S board, I do not think this would actually initialize, so keep that in mind also. Right now, we're taking a closer look at the bottom side of the board here. Now, you might be like, oh, look, it's broken. Well, actually, it's not broken. It's meant to be popped off right there. Also, this right here is supposed to be popped off, and also this, you can pop these off if you wanted to. Just be really careful when doing that. Now, I popped this off personally, just on purpose, just to see how easy it was. It was kind of easy, but just be careful when you're doing that, or if you don't want, just keep them on there. Now, the bottom side here is really nice, is we can see these pads right here. Now, these are not going to be used for anything unless you screw something up with the ESCs. This is a direct connection to the BB2 chip, which is a microcontroller unit in charge of the ESCs on board. So a scenario where you actually might need to use these is if you brick the ESC trying to flash the software in order to enable RPM filtering. However, you need to purchase that for like $2 or $3. I'll have a link to that down below. And that's when you would end up using these. Right now, we could just ignore these. It is using a BB2 chip, which is a 48 megahertz, and we are using the same old FET driver, which is the 4T or something, the FD, I forgot what it's called. The FETs here look pretty good. Very decent size compared to other ones, so they theoretically should handle a bit more than others. Now, size doesn't always mean better, but in terms of heat dissipation, it usually is slightly better. Now, let's go ahead and flip this over. So the thing is supposed to be installed in your quadcopter just like this here, which is the battery right here. The plus and the minus should be in the back. This side should be facing upwards, and this coming out the bottom. I need to take into consideration the USB here on a type of build. For example, if this took a Crazybee type build, then we would probably have to end up installing it like this and figure something out for the USB here. So keep that in mind. As we can tell, we have the arrow right here, which is telling us this is supposed to be pointing to the front of the quadcopter right here. We have our F411 microcontroller unit. We also have our OSD here. And this thing has a built-in LC filter in this area right here, which is also really great in terms of video noise, which should buff out most of the video noise. And but you still recommended to add that low ESR capacitor, especially on these, because the electrical noise can introduce some mid-throttle oscillations that are untunable. So keep that in mind, and that should help you in the future. So always install that little capacitor that they provide you with. So now, as you can tell, we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So obviously this is motor 1, this is motor 2, this is motor 3, and this is motor 4. That's how it should be installed in your quadcopter. Now, the next thing we want to take a look at would be, let's just say, for example, the camera. So the FPV camera, since obviously this thing does have an OSD on board, so we really need the camera. So what you want to do is you want to get the yellow line that's coming from your camera, and you're going to want to install it right there, right in the middle right here. This is the yellow line for your camera. Then you can give the black wire from your camera here, which would be ground, and there's only one left, which would be 5 volts. And you can grab the 5 volts from right here. So 5 volt ground and the yellow wire of your video input, which is the camera wire right there. Next thing, let's just say we wanted to install a video transmitter. This is very important. You need to take this into consideration. You need to know if your video transmitter can operate on 5 volts, and if not, then we're going to have to install it somewhere else. Right now, let's take an example, a 5 volt VTX, which is what we're using. So what you want to do is obviously you want to get the yellow line of your video transmitter, and you want to have that set up right here. Next, we want ground and 5 volts, and where we can grab these from are down here. So this would be ground, which would be the black wire, and this would be 5 volts, which would be obviously the power, the red wire right here. Now, let's just say your video transmitter does not take 5 volts and it takes battery voltage. Well, then you're going to have to take the red wire. The ground will still go to the same place, which would be right here. The video wire would still go here. However, the red wire, instead of going to the 5 volts, it would need to go right there with the battery. because this is where those wires are going to be connected. This is where the battery is going to be connected right here. So keep that in mind. So right now we've covered the video transmitter. However, one thing left over for the video transmitter, which would be smart audio. You know, in quadcopters like these, it's really nice to have smart audio set up. And if you wanted to do that, you can go ahead and access smart audio through the TX1 right here. That's where you would put your smart audio, and that's where I'd enable it in Betaflight. So if you wanted to do that, you can do that as well. LEDs, you have your LED signal here, and you're gonna have to take 5-volt and ground from one of these pads right here, but that would be your signal. There's also room for buzzer. This is the buzzer negative, buzzer positive, and you should have a buzzer going there. Next thing down the line is going to be our receiver, whether it's iBus, S-Bus, or Spectrum. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the top of the board here. Now, usually any receiver has 3 wires, which is black, red, and the signal, whatever it's going to be, whether it's S-Bus or iBus. So on this flight controller, what they're saying is it'll actually go in the same area. However, if it doesn't work, you might want to go somewhere else, such as here. So let me explain what I mean. So if you're running S-Bus, which is, for example, FrSky, the black wire is going to go to ground, which would be this one. Then we're going to have 5 volts, which is going to be that one. And then here was where I would put my S-Bus signal. However, if you had iBus, theoretically it should work here, but if it's not working as they're stating, where you can go is you can go to this R2 pad right here, and that should get you iBus working. So that should be pretty simple and straightforward for most, hopefully. And here we also have a boot button just in case you bricked it for some reason. For example, you're flashing it, you removed the USB, the power disconnected. What you can do is just hold this button right here. While you're holding it, then install the USB, then it'll be in recovery mode, and you can go ahead and reflash it without worrying much about it, which is really nice to have as well. So overall, this is all I got to say. The board looks of really, really great quality. The build construction is great. The manufacturing process looks to be good, and I'm just curious about the OSD. And the OSD here is the 3.3 volt OSD, if anybody was curious. So if you're testing it and you're seeing, oh, it's just getting 3.3 volts, that's normal. This is the Chinese version, which takes 3.3 volts. However, there's also something I would also highly recommend, which is adding that low ESR capacitor, because the filtration seems somewhat minimal for my taste. On the pictures, it looks a lot more. But yeah, it's somewhat minimal. So I really recommend you add that low ESR capacitor right there. And if you don't know how to do that, what you want to do is you want to find the positive and negative, and it's usually very easy because there's a strip on these capacitors. On every capacitor, for example, right here we see this little side marking right here. This means the negative side, so this is going to be the ground, and then the side that has nothing is going to be the positive. And you would want to install these with your wires accordingly here. So the ground is going to go to ground, so as you can tell, there's the minus right here, which is this pin right there, and that's going to go to the ground side, which is going to be right here. And then the positive is going to go right there. And that should give you some filtration going on for your quadcopter, which is, again, highly recommended. Now, just off topic here, just wanted to give you an update on my favorite toothpick here. This is the iFlight, which I replaced the motors with to the Flywoo 7650 kV, I think, 7650 kV. These are my favorite motors. These are the most durable motors I've had. And I'd highly recommend for anyone. Really great performance, and especially on 65mm props. That's all I've tested them on, the cheap ones, and it just handles absolutely phenomenal here. So this has been a really great toothpick of mine that I really love and I take everywhere with me. And again, it's just highly recommended. I really love these motors. And well, that's concluded for this video, guys. Now come join my Patreon. I have a ton of giveaways at the end of the month, especially for new Patreons. They get separate giveaways. So if I had like 5 new Patreons, there's going to be like 2 giveaways between those 5. And everything is going to be premium. So come join my Patreon, don't miss out. And you also get access to my secret shop, and you get a lot of other perks as well, and access to my open hardware flight controller and my other project files. And well, that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.